Hi everyone, my name is Scott, and these are my thoughts. Before I get into today's episode, a brief disclaimer. This podcast is for educational, inspirational, and reflective purposes only. It is not legal, medical, financial, or personal advice, and nothing here is meant to direct your specific actions. Please use your own judgment and consult a qualified professional where and when appropriate. I remember sitting in a coffee shop a few years ago, watching people move through their day. One person was hunched over their laptop, typing away like a madman. Another was scrolling through their phone, laughing at something on the screen. There was a couple in the corner that looked like they were having a serious conversation. Then someone else walked in wearing a suit that was probably more expensive and worth more than all of my possessions combined. And I remember thinking something strange. Every person in that room probably believed they were doing life the right way, or their definition of the right way. Each of them had their own priorities, their own goals, their own personal definition of success. Every person was chasing something they believed mattered. But if you asked them what winning actually looked like, you'd probably get 10 completely different answers. And that's when the thought hit me. Life might be the only game we all play where no one agrees on the scorecard. Some people measure life by money, others in experiences, some in freedom, some in status, some in knowledge, some in family. None of these scoreboards are inherently right or wrong. They're simply different games. The strange part is that most people spend their whole lives playing a game without ever asking who created the rules in the first place, or why they are keeping score the way they are. From the moment we're born, we're handed a rule book we did not write. Our parents have expectations. Our culture has expectations. School teaches us certain definitions of achievement. Society repeatedly reinforces what it believes success should look like. So by the time we actually become adults, many of us are already deep into a game whose rules were decided long before we were old enough to even question them. But if you zoom out far enough, life starts to look very different. At its core, life is really a series of probabilistic outcomes. Every thought you entertain, every belief you carry, every action you take or fail to take nudges your life slightly in one direction or the other. One conversation can introduce you to someone who changes your career. One decision can move you to a new city. One opportunity can alter the next 10 years of your life. Life is not this straight path. It's more like a branching tree of possibilities. Every choice moves you to a different branch. And over time, the accumulation of those choices becomes your life. But beneath all that complexity, human beings are driven by a few very simple forces. At the deepest level, biology pushes us towards survival, towards connection, and towards belonging. For most of human history, survival depended on the tribe. Being accepted meant protection. Being rejected meant isolation. And isolation once carried real danger. So the human mind became very sensitive to these social signals. We want to be seen, we want to be valued, and we want to feel that we matter. And one of the strongest signals that we matter is attention. Think about how powerful it feels when someone gives you their full attention. Like I'm talking like full attention on you. They listen carefully, they ask you thoughtful questions, and it's when you can tell they genuinely care about what you're saying. That experience is more powerful than most people realize. It's one reason therapy can feel so meaningful. For many people, it's one of the rare places where someone sits across from them and gives their full attention to their inner world. And that same mechanism helps explain something else: the magnetic pull of social media. Likes, comments, views, you name it. Each one is a tiny signal that says, you have been noticed. Attention has become this kind of digital currency. And many people are starving for it without ever naming the hunger. So when I was 28 years old, this would have been about 2 years into my career, I measured my worth and success by how much money I was making and the outward appearance that indicated that I was doing well. I was comparing myself to colleagues and friends. I spent so much energy and attention making sure I was keeping up to them or exceeding them. I wasted money on designer clothes, watches, and vacations that I couldn't afford, all to make sure that I was winning and or at least keeping up with the Joneses. By age 30, I realized I was measuring my worth by the wrong scoreboard. I realized also that the game of life is not fair. We all start at different levels, many of us from birth. I saw my colleagues buying properties and affording luxuries that seemed light years away from me, and I felt like a complete failure because of it. I felt like, oh wow, they're working harder than me. Maybe I just have to work even harder. But the reality is, I had $85,000 in student loans, and they didn't. Their parents helped them with a down payment or gifted them the property outright in many cases. Realizing the game wasn't fair, I decided to change the scoreboard for myself. From that point on, it would be self to self comparisons only. I decided I would no longer allow outside forces to dictate what success meant to me. So, even with all these forces pushing and pulling us, biology, culture, attention, approval, there's one truth that often gets overlooked. You still get to decide how the game of your life is played. You choose the rules. You choose the stakes. You choose what counts as success. And you choose or whether you keep score at all. You don't even have to keep score. Of course, none of us begin with complete freedom. We do not choose where we are born. We can't choose our genetics. We don't choose our parents or the early environments that shape our beliefs. Those first chapters are largely written for us. And for many people, it takes well into adulthood to begin separating who they truly are from the environment that formed them. At some point, if you are paying attention, you begin to notice something unsettling. Many of the beliefs guiding your life were inherited rather than chosen. The career path you thought you wanted may belong to someone else's expectations. The way you define success may be something you absorbed from the culture around you. Even some of your fears may not fully be yours. That realization can be uncomfortable, but it can also be incredibly freeing. Because once you see it, you realize something important. You are allowed to rewrite the rules. And this is where life begins to look more like exploration. In the early years, especially, life is like flipping through a giant menu, like a catalog. You look at different options and think, I like this. I'm not so sure about that. That sounds cool. Okay, that one scares me. Maybe I'll try that one someday. The menu of life is enormous. And one of the healthiest things you can do is sample widely enough to learn yourself. Different experiences, different environments, different challenges. You got to try them all out. Every experience gives you something. It gives you information. It teaches you what energizes you, what drains you, what excites you, and what leaves you feeling empty or nothing at all. Over time, you'll see that patterns will begin to appear. You notice your strengths, the kinds of problems you enjoy solving, and the environments where you naturally come alive. You stop browsing the menu and you start choosing your meal. You choose the path that aligns with your strengths, your beliefs, and something larger than yourself. And this is where true depth begins. Once you choose your game, something becomes clear. You do not need to play every game. You do not need to compete on every scoreboard. You do not need to answer every opinion or defend every choice to people who are measuring life by a different standard that was never yours to begin with. A great deal of suffering comes from trying to satisfy expectations that were never truly ours. Conflict, indecision, restlessness, a sense that even when we are doing well, something still feels off. But when you remember that life is a game, the weight of these things begin to change. Losses stop feeling so final. Failures stop feeling so permanent. Obstacles start looking more like puzzles rather than punishments. The game of life was never about playing perfectly. It was about choosing how you wanted to play in the first place. Because once you understand that, you stop asking whether you are winning someone else's game and you start asking a much better question. Is this the game I actually want to play? So, a final reflection. And this is a question for everyone here. What part of your life do you think you may still be measuring by someone else's scoreboard? Feel free to leave that in the comments. With love, Scott.